Hi, everybody. It's Terri Murphy here. I'm a master coach with Workman Success and happy to be your host for today's show. And if this is really an important facet, I think, of anybody's real estate business, because leveraging the power of partnerships is what gives us the differentiation in the marketplace. And I've got some great things lined up for you, because at the end of the day, what we're looking at is leveraging expertise to increase the power and the experience of our the consumer's experience when they work with us. And just like you like to go to a Costco or a big store where you can buy tires or bananas at the same place, that's what the consumer demand is looking for today. So we're looking for partnerships that pay. And I've got some great guests for us. Because I didn't want this to be the Terri Murphy show. Mark Ryan, who is also a coach and a team leader for RE/MAX Victory in Centerville, Ohio, is going to be joining us. Say hi, Mark.
Hi, everyone. Hope you get a lot out of this. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me also.
Yes, and here he is with his baby dogs. Now, can you give us the names of those babies?
Yeah, the one on my left, right as you look at it, is Ditka. So we're Bears fans, so that's Mike Ditka. The one on the left, as you look at it, is Chance. He was actually a rescue. So we.
Oh, how sweet! Well, just a little FYI, being from Chicago, I actually helped sell Mike Ditka's house.
Oh, nice.
And his son, Mark Ditka, is actually a loan officer. So interesting that would come up. And then Joe Garner is going to be joining us. Joe is one of the top professionals here in Memphis, Tennessee. And what I like about Joe is that she is she understands the power of partnerships, and she understands how to leverage that on a really big way. So as we start going through this whole program, we're actually going to talk about the next slide, which addresses how we define the expectations for our consumers and the measurable outcomes. Because the one thing we hear about when realtors and loan originators work together is that typically the realtor thinks that it's all about, I just need some money and support. I want them to buy my donuts for my open house. When in fact, you're really missing the biggest opportunity to leverage expertise and service in a really differentiated way. So could we go to the top 10 on that? There we go. So here's what I thought we'd do. Do the top 10 services so that you can kind of choose the top 3 that you might want to deploy in your business. My real estate career started when the interest rates jumped to 28.75%. So I found it really imperative, Mark, to get in there and hunker down with my lender to figure out how we could navigate these outrageous interest rates and get people into housing. And so here's strategy number 1, and this is where I think Mark can jump in on that, and that is our mutual goal is right out of the get-go is to help that seller, especially if you're into listing, and of course I hope you've watched your SLAM programs, is how in that listing appointment, that first initiative, can you help create real differentiation and extraordinary service by including your loan officer. And what you want to do is get that seller to work with you and work with your lender, and there's a reason for that. Let's go to the next slide, because it actually value stacks your opportunity, and you do that with a pre-appointment system. Now, I asked Mark was really big in the short sales, weren't you, Mark?
I was, and unfortunately it made me lazy.
Well, there's nothing lazy about Mark Ryan, just so you know. But the pre-appointment package for me was one of the biggest points of differentiation. And so what does that mean? This is not, hear me now, this is not the CMA, this is not the marketing plan, this is not even something that you're doing face-to-face. It starts the relationship by creating differentiation. And so if you go to the next slide, it really talks about what the pre-appointment system does. It sets the stage. It's a series of steps and connections that make you stand apart and differentiates you from other agents in whatever they do. And in a market that's highly competitive, especially for listings, this is a real asset. So when we talk about the pre-appointment system, what we actually talk about is what you can do before you have the appointment. And this can be done digitally or it can be dropped off. Now, if you go to the next slide, I just want you to be aware that you don't have to build your own. Workman Success took one that I'd been working with and some of our top coaches and put together the pre-appointment packet to help you have a template of what you can do when you have a pre-appointment package. And let's just talk about some of the deliverables that come with pre-appointment. So the next slide says it has a cover letter. And the cover letter, by the way, is in that pre-appointment package on Workman Success. But it confirms the appointment and the time. That's important, especially if they've called in 2 or 3 other agents. It has a contact by your office management. Now, what does that mean? So I found it very helpful to have my manager call and say, hi, it's Terri Murphy's manager. Just want to let you know congratulate you on making a good choice for Terri Murphy, but we want you to know you get the entire team. Again, sets the whole experience apart from someone else. They also get contacted by my lender partner. And my lender partner would call in advance and say, just so you know, we're part of the Terri Murphy team or the Mark Ryan team. And we just want to let you know that whatever contracts come in, we're happy to be a part of making sure that everything works and that your timeline's right for your on-time closing. And then the day and the time that you have, just prior to that, you have somebody from your office call and confirm the appointment. Now, what that does is it's a lot of touches. And I've had people say, well, that sounds like harassment. Not quite. We know that sale's made after the 5th touch. And so that just sets the stage that something big is about to happen. So here's something else that I like to do, and that is to include, Mark, things that people don't ask about. There are some premium services, but the premium services are not, they're not so detailed that it makes the other agent go, well, I can do that. But you'll see a list there. There's, obviously photography services that are professional, staging, because here's what we want to do, Mark. You tell me if this doesn't work for you. We want to build the value so the issue of the services and the commission never really has to come up because we're doing such different things here. Is there anything on this list that you think is particularly useful that you use?
And I definitely agree. I think it's about building value. It's not about price. If you're worth more, you get more in the end. So the things on there that I specifically talk about is I still do my own photography because I started in photography in high school and college, but we professionally edit them. So that's a differentiator. And then the virtual tours, we use a company called ImmoViewer. Hope I'm allowed to mention companies. But it does kind of that reporting, lead engagement, and it's a kind of a less expensive version of Matterport. So it's in my price point, it's much more practical. So those are the two that we kind of hit on, as well as the lead generation platform. We talk about the number of leads that we generate, the number of potential buyers that we already have. And I'll even bring that up and show them, hey, this is how many buyers that we potentially have. Certainly they're not all interested in your home, but in the area that your home is listed in, we have 800 potential buyers that we'll notify when we list your property.
See how powerful that is? And that comes from our lead tracker and our lead incubation system. So if you're working with Workman Success Systems, you know that this is a critical part of letting that seller know, because that's the one question mark that they always ask of, do you have a buyer for my house? And we've been trained to dance around that and say, well, our job is to get it marketed to the people that can, are looking for that home or pre-qualified for that home. But really, when you show a lead incubation and conversion platform, it's pretty impressive. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that we talk about other items that you can bring up that I guarantee you the other agent's not going to bring up. And it depends on where you are in the country. So what's a clue report? If you don't know what a clue report is and your seller doesn't know what a clue report is, and you happen to be in areas where weather can be an issue and getting insurance for that house can be an issue, you are a rock star when you mention clue reports. For about $9 or $10, the seller has to order it, but it ensures the fact that after you go through all the marketing and the inspections, that your new homeowner can get insurance on that house. So again, we're looking for differentiators. I love my Clean Kids Club. That's a way to get the kids involved in keeping the house clean. We talk about equity sheets. What about the pet policy? If I saw those 2 big old dogs and I was afraid of dogs, I'd want to know, how do we handle that with the homeowners association if it says you can't have a dog over 25 pounds? And if there's any special showing instructions. So you want to let that seller know that you're all points. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see that your lender has a really big part in giving you some support on this. And I like the third-party endorsement. And that's what that initial call. And in the next slide, I actually have a copy of the letter that, or the email, or the text, or the phone call that prospective seller would get that says, hey, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Joe Garner, and I work with Terri Murphy or Mark Ryan as part of the team. We do an aggressive part of marketing your property, and that, as you'll see as we go through today, includes your open houses, your circle prospecting, your housewarming, your help us find a new neighbor. That's right down to feather flags if you want to co-brand those, co-branding door hangers. Your lender is not just there to pre-qualify or to supply the mortgage, but they can actually, compliant friendly, if it's done right, help you with the marketing. Mark, I know that you do some work with yours as well. We're going to get to client appreciation later, but is there anything up front that you do with your loan partner when you talk to the seller?
We do, and we do co-marketing as well, and you know, the best we believe is RESPA compliant and all of that. So it is a great opportunity, and they do need both us and them. But yes, we do present that as part of the value proposition of working with us as a team. So it's not just me, I do have a team, but part of that team is our lender, our title company, and talking about the strengths and how that can impact. So we've even had several transactions where, because we have such a good relationship with our lender, the deal starts to fall apart because of financing when I have the listing. And at my seller's direction, and obviously I guide them in that direction, is before we release that buyer from the contract, we want them to talk with our lender. And can't do it every time, but probably several times a year, he's able to get transactions done that the previous lender was not. And obviously often the other agent will kind of push back on that a little bit. And basically I just explain to them, hey, it's worth a try. He's very good. And I've actually converted several other agents to using our lender because of that. And at the end of the day, everybody's happy. The seller's thrilled, the buyer's thrilled,
Yeah.
the house, the other agent gets paid, I get paid. It's a win-win for everybody. And if it doesn't work, then I can tell my seller, hey, it really isn't going to happen. You know, cut bait, let the other buyers go, and let's get this back on the market. But it is a true value proposition for them.
Well, and Mark is going to be a guest on the RIS Media webinar next week on Wednesday at 2 o'clock Central Time. And Mark, you have a particular policy that you deploy in your business with only using one loan originator. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Sure. So I can give you kind of my whole spiel on that is, I want true partnerships. So I like analogies, so hopefully everybody will bear with me on this, but how committed would I be if I were dating 3 different women? You know, nobody's really committed to everybody. But if I'm dating or engaged or married to one of those women, now we have a true partnership. That's how I view lenders. So it's kind of 2 things. One, I want that true partnership. So they're really going to jump through hoops and do things on behalf of our client. And we tell our clients that it's really because of us. Because we send our lender a ton of business, you're going to get exceptional business, exceptional service, because most people are going to do a loan every 7 to 10 years. And it may or may not be with the same company, but the odds of it being with that same loan officer are exceptionally low. So you're going to do 1 transaction in your lifetime with your loan officer. We send 10 plus deals a month to our lender. He's going to do things. He's going to take great care of you when or if problems happen. He's going to jump through hoops. He can bump you to the front of the line, all of those things to make sure that we close on time. The other piece from an agent standpoint is it's my belief that if I'm going to get sued because I gave somebody 1 lender, whether I gave them 1 or 3 isn't going to make any difference. If the lender screws up and they feel the need to sue me, whether I gave them 1 or 3 isn't going to give me any measurable level of security. So I'd rather give them 1. And if I have to be in court, be able to stand up and say, yes, this lender's fantastic. You can look back. He's done hundreds of loans for our clients. And I have every reason to believe that he would do what he should have done. So.
No, that makes really good sense, and it's been a part of the industry that you had to give 3 attorneys and 3 this and 3 that. And according to Mike White, who's one of the top mortgage coaches, that's really not true. I would also caution you, if you're new in the business, if you have somebody that specifically is very, very trained at VA or FHA, and another group is not, obviously we like expertise in every level. So if we go to the next slide, we talk about how this actually works. So we deliver the package to the client, whether it's electronic or hard copy. They get a call from the office, they get a call from the manager, they get a call from the loan originator. That's a pretty good differentiator before you get there. So strategy number one is let's maximize how we use our lender partner for social proof. And we'll go to the next slide as we talk about how TRID counseling, although it's been about a year, most people never articulate the fact that TRID has created a different set of paperwork and timelines, and that seller really needs to be counseled. And as a loan originator, that's the time that you want that seller to be pre-qualified for their next loan or to help them understand that their equity can work. I just helped a client last week who had a substantial equity in her house because our market's so fast here, actually buy another house based on the equity, a line of credit, so that she could qualify to buy that house, get it off the market, and then sell hers. So get that lender partner involved right away with your seller, because it may even help you with negotiations at the end when they see that it's going to be just pennies on a dollar if they don't get that extra $1,000. So again, very important for you. So let's see if slide number next has to do with our second strategy, which it does. And here's something that every agent seems to fall down somewhere in their course of their line. And I know, Mark, we talk about this, and that is the reactivation campaign for past clients, which we have client appreciation parties, which Mark's really good at, prospects, and farm contacts. So the next slide kind of points up what we talk about and what can you say? Because I have a lot of our coaching clients, Mark, that say, well, I don't really know, how is my lender going to help me with that? Well, one of the initiatives that we work with a lot is the annual mortgage fitness and identity theft screening. And I like, if you go to your top 50, your 8651 ebook, you'll notice in the very back that we have an entire touch there, and it talks about in January, this is a great time for your clients, past clients, to get an annual mortgage fitness. What if they're still paying private mortgage insurance? What if there's a substantial difference in interest rate? What if there's a better financial plan for them than they're presently using? That's when your lender can really help you. And as we advance to the next slide, you'll see that we also understand that if we make that appointment with our seller, when we call in January and say, hey, we're just updating our database, we want you to save a date for our first client appreciation party on such and such a date, they can do, if they don't need a mortgage review for whatever reason, that identity theft screening, which your lender can do every single day, is a great tool and value add after the sale. So that's another great opportunity. Mark, is there something you do that you've ever used that with?
We offer that, at least the mortgage review. I hadn't been doing the ID theft screening, but I like that as an addition. And I think they're not doing anything special. They're just reviewing credit and looking at anything looks odd, right? That's the only magic secret there.
Yeah, and that's but it's a great opportunity because in people being busy, they don't think about that. And yet, what if you were able to help them not have an issue with identity theft in their life? So that makes you look like a rock star, which brings us to strategy number 3, which is open houses. And I got to tell you, if you're doing the standard open house, which I hear from a lot of my clients, which is put up the sign, buy a box of cookies, and hope somebody shows up, you're not maximizing your open house. And our next slide talks about how in our SLAM and our AMP session, and this is session number 7 under marketing, Cleve Gaddis, who's going to be one of the stars of our program today, talks about an open house on steroids, which actually came from Mark Seiden, who's one of our coaches. And there's lots and lots of steps, and we're going to show you that, but you can work this with your loan originator to help your loan originator get to the client or the prospective client or the customer with value add. So it's not just a realtor initiative to get a house sold, but rather to connect with the 40 some houses around, or the 40 properties around that one. But inside of the program on AMP, we have all of the timelines, all of the scripts, all of the plans there. Now, Mark, is there anything special you do for open houses that you'd like to share with everybody today?
We market it on all the different websites and boost it on Facebook. But one of the things that we have started doing this year, and I truthfully have not been a very big fan of open houses over the years, but in the current market, they're working very well for us, at least for generating buyers, is we do the 10-10-20. And again, we partner with the lender for flyers to use for that. So, and for those of you that aren't familiar with that process, is you do 10 houses on each side of the house and 20 across the street from the house.
Yeah. And so here's another one that we really like. And again, you don't have an open house to sell the house. I mean, that in my career, that happened, I think, twice. And I held them a lot. What it does is it brands you to the people around the property so they know you're working. Imagine how rude it is if you live in a neighborhood and all of a sudden there's a for sale sign next to you and you're like, wow, when did that happen? But wouldn't it be great to meet that person, put a face with the energy? And so we do that with an exclusive sneak peek event that really allows the loan originator and the agent to meet with those 40 people, 10, 10, and 20, to set up an additional touch. Now think about it. If there's 40 people around a property, of course, it geographically mark if it's a single family, and you do a sneak peek to have them come in about an hour before the actual public open house, and you send a thank you to the people that made it, or a gee, I'm sorry we missed you, you've already had 2 touches, maybe 3, especially if you get to meet them. So that, to me, really, really helps. The next slide talks about how you deliver that neighbors-only private invitation. And as Mark just mentioned, the 10-10-20 that goes with it. It, of course, depends on the solicitation requirements or regulations where you live, but U.S. mail still works. And generally, door hangers still work. So that's how we actually talk about. And instead of just listed or just sold, Mark, in order for us to bank this so that there's more interaction with that prospective buyer or seller or buyer actually for properties around that house, we change the verbiage from just listed to help us find your new neighbor campaign. Finding is picking sounded too judgmental. So we've changed that since to help us find your new neighbor, doing the 10-10-20s around that property. Now, let's just say you don't even have any listings and you'd like some. If it's a target area that you really like, you can go ahead and solicit the 40 around a property. You just have to say, help us find a new neighbor. There's no reason for you not to prospect, because NAR statistics tell us that the most logical person who has a buyer for the property that's up for sale are the people that live there, because it's a testament to their good choice. Mark, any comments?
No, and not really, but other than the addition is, yeah, we do the sneak peek kind of early invite to the sellers or the homeowners around the home. 2 reasons: one, to get that touch with them, but also it then makes it more focused on the people that are coming later are likely actual buyers, so the agent can focus more on them and not worry about just nosy neighbors.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm all for nosy neighbors, though, because they know somebody. And if they're nosy, that's okay. Although there's always that one whack job, right?
Right, but we try to get them in early so we get them out of the way.
So good. But listen, it's all about being belly to belly with people. Wouldn't you agree? Because you can direct mail all the day long, but when they get to meet you, there's a different energy. So strategy number 4 is low inventory, and everybody seems to have that. Mark, how's the market where you are?
Very low. We're not selling more houses. We just don't have enough of them. There's more buyers. It's a little crazy. I'd rather have a normal market, truthfully.
Okay, so here's the thing. There's some of our markets, Mark, that are slower as we coach across the country, and there's some markets that are really still pretty hot. And so when we have an issue with low inventory, here's where it gets really, really interesting for step 4. Cleve Gaddis, who's our superstar, also has a radio show. It's called the Atlanta Real Estate Show, and he's terrific on that. He gave us a script. Actually, he was on my show with Joe Garner, actually. And I went ahead and I transcribed his portion of the program, because he has a terrific script about getting people to move out of a property where there's high equity, and that would be the boomers. The reason we had a slow inventory at all was because the boomers weren't moving up or out. and that middle property no one could trade up. So he has a great script, and I told Chet earlier, if you need a copy of that, we're happy to get it to you, or the audio, which can be found at joegarner.com, and that's jogarner.com. So one of the scripts that is really powerful is, are you in your forever home, which is actually our next slide. And what does that mean? Well, when you're a boomer and you've been in a property for a long time, and if you haven't moved lately, this is a problem, because you get a lot of stuff, right? And you think, well, the kids are gone, we probably don't need this big house, but we're waiting for the market because we know it's going to keep going up. Well, in fact, it hasn't. If you study Cleve, with the inflation that's only gone up 1/4 of a point, give or take, across the country on an average style home, I was just telling Mark earlier, it would cost you an extra $13,000 just to get into that home. So your forever home is, if you've got strong equity right now and interest rates are fairly low, absorption still isn't crazy, it's probably time for you to look at maximizing your real estate investability by you're getting another property and getting into your forever home. So if it's time for you to trade up, trade down, maybe get a second home, this is the time to do that. So here's a copy of a template mailer that we designed to be done with your lender. And it's kind of fun. It's, do you know what your neighbors did last night? And that's kind of catchy. And it says either they've sold their property or they've listed it. And your neighborhood is in high demand. So I'm asking, are you currently living in your forever home? So you could have the home of your dreams if you need an extra bedroom, or mom's moved in, or you want a first floor master. Inventory is still low. There's still buyers out there. Interest rates are still good. How about a free, no hassle, no obligation analysis for you? And that's done by the lender. So on the flip side of that postcard, which is our next slide, you can see where the compliance works, because it says, are you living in your forever home? Your lender is happy to take that space to talk to you about whether or not you could qualify for that home of your dreams. You share your branding, you share your services, you share your costs, and you share your results. Mark, any comments there?
No, I love it. I actually just added that to my Agile.
And Mark's talking about his Agile, which is our project manager. And if you're a Workman coachee, then you know what that is. That's how we keep track of all of our projects so they get done. But when you talk about a home valuation report, or, you know, Mark, I really like Zach Pasmanic, where he has home prices. So if you're the kind of person that isn't really interested in just having your home done, you're still interested in what's happening in your neighborhood. So I'm sure we have that somewhere in our resource library, Chet, do we not?
I believe we do.
Yeah, and by the way, Joe Garner didn't get her link, so you might want to resend it. But yeah, check our resource library, because Zach is remarkable, and he really has mastered the marketing piece of engagement to give people what they want when they want it. Also, our next slide is going to talk about house for sale by owners. Now, everybody knows about that. For sale by owners, a lot of us avoid, but here's one of the keys. They don't want to talk to a realtor. That's why they're trying to sell it themselves. But they'll talk to a lender. And how they do that is, we have the lender approach the for sale by owner and say, look, I'm really not interested in listing your house. I'm looking for buyers that I can pre-qualify or get qualified for your property. And here's some of the things that I can do for you. So I had a sequence set up for the for sale by owner checklist. And a lot of this is our FSBO is not only in BAM, but it's also in SLAM. The lender contacts the for sale by owner to follow, to offer services in a drip sequence. And the first one is obviously to pre-approve the buyers that have already been through. What about saying, listen, I've got a team, Mark Ryan and his team will do my feedback to find out, well, what didn't they like about it? Or what was their feedback about the showing? Maybe offer them some of the paperwork, offer open house services. You know, if you have an open house without the seller there, you get a lot more feedback. Maybe an interactive voice response sign writer to capture all the leads while they're at work or not home. Staging services, professional photography. Hey, Mark, anything you can add to that?
No, the only other thing we do is have the buyer agents approach them. as using them to purchase their next home. Another little trick, because they, honestly, I don't care if they sell the house themselves, but they need to buy a new one. So use us to do that. And it's a soft way to make that introduction.
Isn't that great? Thanks for that great tip. Well, the realtor and the lender can share RedX. Do you use RedX, by the way?
I do.
And there you go. What's been your experience?
I use it for the expired side. We haven't been targeting for sale by owners. Strangely, even in a hot market, we're not seeing a whole lot. So we're just not spending the energy in that area. They're out there, but it's not as heavy as you might expect.
Excellent. And that's what is so great about having Mark on the team. He's active and he's a team leader, so he's reading his market. And another opportunity for the realtor lender is to offer the ProQuest Technologies, which is the interactive voice response system for lead tracking and conversion. That to me is an important facet of what we do and how we do it. Mark, any comments on that?
No, we use it, but not to the full system. Like, just for you guys all know, we're real. We're always working and struggling with some of the same things you are. So that's one of the things we haven't implemented the full Workman system on that. So we don't get as good a results as we really should. We just do the
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it depends on where you are. We have people in the middle of nowhere where no one drives by, but then especially for vacant land, that's another opportunity to find out, because obviously it's a different response system. So strategy number 5 is about new listings or newly closed sales. And this is another place where the lender and the realtor can really work together. We talked about the 10-10-20s, and we talked about what your neighbors did last night, but we also didn't mention that, whoever bought that house, we can also do a housewarming. But what did your neighbors did? Well, they decided to move, and now we need more properties because everybody's excited about where you've made a great choice. Tell people that we've got, a new listing, and I'm sure there's somebody that might want to be your neighbor. So that's how we've repurposed this particular mailer. And on the other side, of course, we've gone ahead and put the lender on there. Any points on that one?
No, nothing really to add there, I don't think.
Okay, so again, you can always change the copy, but at the end of the day, you're always looking for that next step to offer service. Complimentary home valuation. Is it time for your mortgage fitness checkup? How about an identity theft screening? Home price rising or falling reports. I mean, that's always interesting. We think, well, people can get that if they want, but just like a convenience store, you pay a little bit more for money at for milk at a 7-Eleven, but it's worth the convenience. So that's where we look for differentiation, is where can we be of more value? And number 6 is branding and marketing. And I'll bet that Mark has some information there for us as well. How are we converting some of these people? And our next slide goes into how do we leverage our brand and our marketing. And we can do that with neighborhood updates. And depending on where you are, it can be electronic. I've got a client in Nowhere, Montana, and she does a market update from the local coffee shop every Monday on Facebook. It's a Facebook Live. Again, it's consistency, and it makes you become what we call the celebrity authority of your marketplace. Because if you know what's going on, that really helps. Mark, any points on that one?
We do that as well with through Facebook. We haven't been doing it through direct mail, but we want to be known as the expert. And as far as branding goes, we spend money in places just to make sure that they quote see us everywhere. We sponsor the school sports teams, the scoreboard, things like that, so that it helps fuel our other lead generation because they quote see us everywhere.
Yeah, quote unquote, see you everywhere. That's the one thing we try at Workman Success, is to find out through our lead generation, our lead tracking system, is where is our business actually coming from? And when we know that it's coming specifically because we branded it either with the IVR or through some kind of metric, and I know that that Zach does this really well. But when you co-brand your services, you're doubling your exposure and you're using social proof. Number 7 is prospecting. And of course, Mark, we could spend all day on prospecting, but it's just about lead generation together. It's about lead incubation. And that's, to me, where that lender can really help us. because ultimately we want lead conversion. And like Verl always says, there are no bad leads, just leads that are not ready to buy. And again, we don't share any revenue stream, but the Red X is a terrific tool in some places because it does track for rent by owners, for sale by owners, and expireds, and depending on where you are, other options. Do you want to jump in on that, Mark, and just talk about your experience with the Red X?
The biggest thing is just from a time standpoint and compliance standpoint is it doesn't just tell you what houses expired, it's also cross-referencing those against relist. So if you pull the list on Monday and you're still calling it on Friday, you're probably, at least in Ohio, breaking the law because several of those properties have been listed. So Red X is going to go back in each day and cross-reference which ones have now been listed, or maybe they sold and they just weren't marked appropriately. But it prevents you from calling on people that you shouldn't. So it's a huge time saver. To try to do that manually is just way too cumbersome.
Yeah, that makes really good sense. I know a lot of people, they want to call expires, but you got to check too many places, and the Red X sets it up for you so that you don't even have to worry about it. One of my other favorite things is, and it kind of depends on where you are in the country, Mark, but let's just say you're in a highly residential area like downtown Chicago or LA, where there's cars parked up and down the street. And if you're having an open house, you can't see those little tent signs. And so one of the best things you can do is get a feather flag, because that certainly sets you apart a little bit, but you can actually share the sides with a lender partner so that you're branding both equally and you're getting some pretty good attention. Not sure if you use that where you are.
We do open house. They're not co-branded though. But we do use the open house feather flags. I even have the big Remax balloons, but they're too cumbersome to take to the houses all the time, but we use the feather flags.
Here's the difference. Are you getting the theme that when you do things that are slightly different, it has a huge outcome? So anybody can do standard. Anybody can just put up a sign and hold an open house. But if you've already touched the 40 people around that particular property, if you've already put a live Facebook on, and maybe you and your lender talk about it, and you mention that anybody that comes in, you're happy to do a no obligation, no hassle identity theft screening or annual mortgage fitness. Those are the kinds of things that help you stand apart. And it also shows that you have a higher energy and commitment level to what you do and how you do it. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Now, here's where we start getting into some of our good stuff, and Joe is going to join us in a minute. It's strategy number 8, and that deals with lunch and learns and educational events that create a profile that you are a celebrity authority. And what that means is that when you are the host, you get the credit for being the expert. Now, I would never want you to be the expert on mortgages, ever. That's why we always want to have our lender, or if you have a home inspector, Pillar to Post does a great job. If you have a title rep, an attorney, if you're specializing in, as an example, in probate or estate, you always want to have somebody who's the expert, and you just get to be the interviewer, sort of like being Oprah. So in that list, is there anything that you do, Mark, with your group?
That's one of the things we do. We have a great partnership, but we haven't done the kind of educational seminar type events.
And I want to make this clear. That's why we put in 10 tips, because you can't do everything. And we don't want you to do everything. What we really want you to do is to pick 1 or 2 and do them really, really well and effectively. And that goes to your agile, because your agile is where you'll put all the steps for what it takes to have a lunch and learn, or to have a senior estate program at your local lender, destination. If you're in a military area, how we do something specific for military, first-time home buyers or first-time sellers. So that, to me, is one of our good strategies to work with the lender. And I know, is Joe on?
I'm on. Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can. It's Joe Garner, and that brings us to strategy number 9. Now, Joe is an amazing lady. She has taken mortgage to a brand new level, and she does a number of things to, quote, circulate to percolate. Let's go to the next slide if we can, Chet. each month, one of the things that Joe does, well, first of all, every Saturday she has her own radio show, and you can see that I did one with her some time ago. She is a radio star, actually. She has started a talk shop, which is a marketing company offering free education and networking every single Wednesday morning. And there they are. They get together and they are supported by what we want to call strategic partners, advertisers and supporters and sponsors. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your radio show to start, Joe?
You know, you were talking about it earlier, Terry, and that is you want to position yourself as a professional, as the trusted advisor, whether you're a realtor or you're a mortgage officer. And one way to do that is to put yourself in the control seat of building a funnel and being that trusted advisor that people come to and refer to. On the radio show, I have found a lot of success there, Terry, because we reach thousands of people, of course, terrestrially on the air on WREC here in Memphis, 92.1 here in Memphis, and on iHeart nationwide. I work nationwide in the mortgage field. But not only that, we also repurpose that broadcast to podcasting. And of course, there's a myriad of different platforms you can use to put your podcast and ways to target your specific market on podcast. But all of that to say, with the goal in mind of funneling people who are interested in getting a mortgage or people who are interested in referring mortgages to me. So that has been a great success. I think podcasting is in its infancy. So anyone out there, whether they're a realtor or a lender, I would encourage you to consider, if you're not on like a WREC or a KWAM station, you can do your own radio podcast by podcasting.
Yeah, podcasting is a great opportunity. But one of the things that I like about working with you, Joe, is that you've always had an attitude or a philosophy that all of us is more valuable than one of us. And so you've reached out to both title and appraisal and all the strategic partners with interviews and purposing those interviews. And also you do a networking coffee. Can you tell us about that? I think that's our next slide.
Well,
I'm not sure.
You know, we go back to the funnel picture. Any of us in sales, we all have a funnel. And we've got to find ways to target the people to put into that funnel and follow up with them and connect with them. The other part of the circulate to percolate is giver's gain. If you are in a position to give referrals to a realtor or to another person who is working with you, they are going to be compelled to send you business over and over again. And so the power coffee is I take people that I get from the radio calls and from Talk Shop, which is a networking group that I founded back in 2003. I take those contacts and I invite them once a month to a power networking coffee, and we'll meet somewhere like Panera or someplace that serves coffee that has a big enough space for us, and we network with them, and then I have a system of following up with them the rest of the month to connect them with people who can refer them business. But in the process, Terry, my number one goal is to ask them for a warm referral for mortgage business, whether that be to a realtor, a builder, a financial advisor, and then I go from there. And I've got even a file that Excel spreadsheet that I keep up with who I've referred to those people at the coffees and who they've referred to me. So it's just a constant warm introduction, one call after another, to people who have already, that person has told them good things about me, and it's just an easy sell. It's an easy conversion.
So Mark, doesn't that sound a lot like our top 50?
Absolutely.
Which again is a process of consistency of being top of mind. And by having the power coffee, some people can make it, some people can't, just like top 50, but there's this consistency to business development and leveraging relationships to get more business. Would you agree?
Oh, I love it. And Talk Shop is a networking group. We meet every Wednesday, and we have speakers, first-class speakers like you, Terri. You've talked at Talk Shop, and you've been on my radio show, that offer gold nuggets, information and resources for business people as well as real estate people to go out there and make a profit in their business. It's tools, it's education, but for me, the big key is the networking before and after this event. Networking is more than just shaking somebody's hand and giving them your card. It is a relationship farm. You have to farm it. It's not a hunting expedition. It is a farming enterprise where you stay in touch with that person. You're able to refer business to that person, and therefore when you ask for a referral from that person, you are going to get it. You're going to get a good one.
Yeah, and so part of what you do is you leverage this on social media, and we've got some questions which we're going to go to in just a minute. So stand by, because I have to get my glasses on to read that. But both Mark and Joe, just feel free, and by that's J.O. Garner, by the way, if you didn't see that. What do you want to talk about on social media? Well, low interest rates, changes in closing when we had TRID, housing market statistics in the area. What else are you typically putting on social media? Let's start with Mark.
I think you pretty much hit it. I'm trying to think if there's really, we'll put some of our listings on there, but we try not to do too much, and we try to do a balance of sharing it to our business page and then sharing the team out from there. But we don't want to pound.
No, of course. I mean, it's supposed to be social, but one of the great things you can also do on social media, and Joe and I have talked about this, is cover events, because at the end of the show, she talks about local events. As an example, the farmers market, the 4th of July party, the competition for, the pet parade, whatever it is, you become that person who happens to be the professional, which makes you more approachable. And Joe, you're the queen of that, especially what you do on the radio. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, Terri, I'm glad you asked, because one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years that brings me more sales conversions and closer, more loyal referring partner relationships. People love to hear stories. They're not as interested in what the rates are. They're not really as interested in how something works, step 1, step 2, step 3. They can learn all that if you present it in the form of a story. And of course, change the names of the players to protect the innocent and maybe the guilty in some points. But people like to hear your message in the form of a story that involves someone that they can relate to, who has a great desire, has a challenge, and to figure out how they overcame that challenge to get what they wanted. Absolutely.
So stick with us on that, because anytime that you become the storyteller, you also become the celebrity authority. And that's what, if you're not going to go out and have your own radio show, you can contact a person like Joe in your local market and ask if they'd like an update on local real estate, or that you leverage one of your experts and bring them in. I mean, people want information, but they want it in their preferred channel. So find out what that is. Right. And then pursue it. So our last one, which is where you and Mark are going to shine a lot, our last strategy is about events, because people like events. And when you co-sponsor events, you're both leveraging both from a compliance standpoint, but you're leveraging your expertise and you're leveraging that approachability to you. And so the next slide talks about the client appreciation parties, events that we have. And at Workman Success, one of the Workman ways to always be in gratitude. And I did this a million years ago because we had a brand new store open called Baker Square, and they had pies. And my company was a company that was named Applegate. So we had a lot of apple pies. But at the holiday, and we've had some people say, well, where I live, they don't eat pie. Well, whatever. But we have a pie event. Mark, tell us a little bit about what happens in your market when you do your November pie appreciation event.
It's a good event. In fact, it kind of cracks me up. I've had a couple clients tell me it's the best thing we do all year, which is a little depressing because I think we do some other stuff that's really much better. But it's nice. So we have them come into our office to pick up the pie. We've talked about delivering them, but we like them coming here. It's much more manageable. But one of the tips I will give you is we started out doing pumpkin pies years ago, and the last last year, maybe last 2 years, we expanded that into pumpkin, apple, pecan. I think maybe that's it. And it actually expanded so it cost us more, but that's really what I want. I want to spend more money and have more people engaged. So giving them an option was great. And then we also found a deal on the spray Cool Whip stuff and just threw that in as an extra. And people were super excited about that. So if anybody's doing these events, those are a couple tips that may help you out a little bit.
Well, you know that at Workman Success, we always talk about the queen of all things, and that would be Christy Buck, who gave away, 455 pies last fall?
Right.
Including with the police and the fire department, because if people don't make it, they get all the extra pies. I mean, it's not about the pie, kids. It's about seeing your people on a quarterly basis or at least annually, because so many agents leave literally about $45,000 to $100,000 on the table because the sale is not done once it closes, is it? Joe, you know that better than anybody.
That's right. It really what counts, Terry. We're all in this. We're in this for 100% commission. We got 100% skin in the game, and the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is, of course, the relationships first. But that sale, that actually ching when you get the money on the cash register.
And because it starts the relationship, just because they've bought the house and it's closed, we know that so much, especially Mark, as we track where our business comes from every year, is from past clients. Your past clients know people. You've already got a relationship. They know that your team is like 100%. Lee Tessier, as an example, takes and makes sure that when he does, and he's one of our coaches and one of our team leaders as well, he actually on the pie has a note which is split with him and his lender, right? So, but it also has one, who do you know who's looking to buy or sell a home? He always wants to use this, not like I need another listing or I need another buyer, but we loved working with you. Who can we give the same level of service to? So I just wanted to show what Lee did as well. And there are other events. Let's talk about some of them. The housewarming party, which we referred to earlier. If it's in your farm or an area that you're heavily visible, you can have a housewarming party with your lender. What happens? They get to meet the neighbors. What happens? How would you like an annual mortgage fitness or identity theft screening? What about looking at your financial plan? How can we maybe use that equity maybe to buy another property and leverage your financial portfolio? When we do the appreciation events, especially at Christmas or Hanukkah or at Thanksgiving, we always want to put in an element for the community. Coats for the cold, food for the food pantry. Anything specific that you do, Mark?
We don't do those, but I did want to jump back real quick. I actually just shot you a message on the pies or any of our client events. We try to tie into a charitable event. So we just had our big 4th of July. We do it for a local charity to benefit a young mother passed away, and they started a foundation for scholarships for girls. So we do that. But for the pies in November, we also partner with Toys for Tots. So when they're picking up their pie, they can also drop off Toys for Tots, and we usually fill several of those big boxes there. But the neat thing with what it does is when it feels good, you're giving back, but it also gives it a good way for you to spread this on social media, because it gives you the opportunity to say, so for our 4th of July event, we get we get baskets we put together and raffle for the charity. So as those baskets come in, we can post, hey, look at the baskets we got, look what we just got, hey, this is what's coming. So it's promoting us, but it's also promoting, it's a little less shameless because we're doing it on behalf of the charity. Same thing with the Toys for Tots. Hey, we filled 1 box. We can post that up. Hey, remember to come get your pies, but look what we've done so far. So I love the idea of the housewarming parties. We've just failed to really execute that as a team, but I think it's a great idea.
Put it on your agile.
It's on there.
As we wrapping this up, we're going to do a short review, but I want to tell you a story about one of my clients. Her name is Kim. She is in the Detroit area, and she set up her entire year, which we're going to talk about how you budget your time and specify when you're going to do what, for this touch with the people who already know, like, and trust you. And what she does is she has 3 events plus her pie event every year, and quarterly on her top 50, and that speaks to Joe with the people that you said you got referrals from. She had a wine and cheese in between January, February, and March. And then she's having an ice cream social for the second quarter. And then she has a going back to school with apples and cider and all of that kind of stuff. And then of course her pie event. But she got 17 different referrals from those events because she's working that. Now, Mark, did you have something else you can add here?
No, sorry, that message was going back to the charitable.
That's okay. Well, here's the thing. I just want to review where we've got. You want to leverage your lender at your listing because that seller most likely is going to buy another property, and you want them pre-qualified and to understand their equity levels and all about trade counseling. And is there anything you want to add to that, Joe, before I move to number 2 or 3?
Well, I like what you said about involving the realtor with the TRID guidelines, Terry, because a lot of people who are buying homes and selling homes right now, they have not done so since 2015. So it's a real wake-up call to find out that we have these guidelines that we need to march by, and having the realtor and the lender communicating this with the client really drills in that this is really the way it's supposed to be, and we really need to abide by these TRID guidelines.
Yeah, and I so often as a realtor, I'll just say, oh yeah, whatever. But it's an important and critical step that has changed. And again, it's that differentiation that you might have missed earlier that I think is important. And the annual mortgage fitness review and identity theft screening, the premium open house partnerships. Again, they're the main connection. People go to housing before they go to money, when in fact they should go to money before they go to housing, because then we find out what they can actually afford. Prospecting, if it's done compliant friendly, don't look to that lender to support your need for catch up. Look at what you can do from a business standpoint with comprehensive and actionable and measurable initiatives to advance your service options and your skill sets. New listing or new closed properties and prospecting strategies with maybe housewarming, marketing and branding through the farming. Again, you're splitting costs, but you're also leveraging implied endorsement that the people that you work with work together. That's that whole 7-Eleven convenience thing. Prospecting platforms, lunch and learns, educational events, social media, and then of course your annual customer appreciation and charitable promotional events. I think you had to get some pretty good ideas here. Mark, I want to thank you for some of the great ideas you gave us. And Joe, is there anything you'd like to add right here while I look at some of these questions?
Well, teamwork makes the dream work, Terry, and you're right, spot on with these strategies that you've mentioned today. Obviously, like you said, we can't do them all, but if you can pick some that really work for you, that's all you need.
Well, with one quick question we got, and I'm going to ask Mark to stand for a second. Juan asked us, how do you reach out to those past clients after you've absolutely abandoned them for like several years? I've got an idea. What do you think, Mark?
I think the easiest thing here, the maybe not easy, but the best thing is just to own it and start with an apology sincerely. Hey, sorry we dropped the ball. We're starting to do these things. Have it plan in place so you can tell them, hey, we're doing these activities and we'd like to re-engage with you. We really enjoyed working with you. And we found that, people that we like probably have friends that we'll like as well, and we'd love to help them, but we apologize for dropping the ball, and we'll do our best not to let that happen.
Yeah. We have that in our scripts, Joe, and it's called, oops, we dropped the ball, or I miss you. But at the end of the day, calling them up and updating the database one will help a lot. But here's what you have to understand, and I want you to listen up here because you've been great for almost a full hour. You have to have these planned and executed daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual calendars. And we have something called our daily success habits. And this daily success habits tracker is not about being a Nazi about what you're doing in what minute, but if we can develop the rhythm of success, if we develop the rhythm of calling our top 50, as Joe talked about in hers, or knowing that you're going to be scheduling that week an open house, so you start on Monday so that by the time it comes, you've blocked the time every single step so that you're not being reactive instead of responsive. You can't throw a block party if you wait until the day before. You can't order your flags for the 4th of July if it's the 3rd of July. The time blocking is what most entrepreneurs don't do. And they don't do it because they're so busy working in the business and not on the business. And one of the Workman Way initiatives is that when you are doing a My Planned Week, which is part of My Planned Month, which is part of My Planned Quarter, which is part of My Annual Plan, and then you bring it down to the day, you are most likely to get more done in less time. It won't get done, especially in a digiphrenic world with real estate, which is highly reactive. But at least if it's blocked, Mark, you can move it to another spot so you don't miss it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. If you don't even attempt to put it down, you get what you focus on. And if you're not focusing on anything, you're just kind of bumping around in the wind.
Well, that's a great contribution. And I'm going to tell you that one of the options of the Workman Success Systems is we give you the systems and we give you the tools so that you can be more successful. Now, one of the gifts that we're giving you is an interview to interview a strategic partner. And just like Mark said, you can't have 3 girlfriends. Well, here's the thing. You're not just going to find a Joe Garner by just without doing an interview and finding out if that person is actually committed and interested in a comprehensive and measurable way to advance business. Would you agree, Joe?
Absolutely, Terri. Absolutely.
And then your daily success habits tracker, boy, you got to have one of those. I mean, no matter what kind of business you're in, no what kind of sales, if you can track what you're doing every day, you'll find out that you're not doing a whole lot of work. You're doing a lot of what Verl likes to call fake work or busy work. And we've all been there. It's like being on a rocking horse. You can rock pretty hard all day long and get nowhere, or get out to be a racehorse and get right to that goal. And then my Perfect Week scheduler is also available. All you have to do is go to workmansuccesssystems.com/partnership, and you'll get those free gifts. I hope we've helped you today. I know that if you follow these guidelines, you could be as successful as Mark Ryan, who I want to thank profusely for sharing his outstanding time and insight. And of course, our star Joe Garner from Evolve Mortgage here in Memphis. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you.